All right. Well, I am super excited for today's episode because what I like to do every so often is give all of you a great case study on what's possible. And today's guest is exactly that kind of person. I've got Rashelle Herrera with me that I've known for quite a while. We'll get in and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what I love about her story is how she's really kind of grabbed the bull by the horns, if you will. And especially this last year and a half of her career has made some pretty amazing things happen that I want to make sure and share with all of you because, as I've told you before, there's clues in success. And so as we watch other people have success, it helps us to be able to know exactly what you need to do to get that success in your life as well. So with that, we're going to roll that episode. All right, Rashelle, it is great to have you with me today. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me. It's super cool to hear the intro while hearing you record the intro because I listen to it all the time.
I know it's like you get a little behind the scenes, right? Because I know
Yeah,
you've been listening to the podcast for quite a while now. I think that's kind of how you and I ended up meeting
exactly.
initially, I think, right?
Yeah. I started listening back in February of this year,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah, and you're just one of those people that makes me smile. You have a beautiful smile, and I want to say I think cool beans too, right? Cool beans. I love that
Yeah.
catchphrase. I hear you say every so often too. That just makes me happy. But you know, I wanted to bring you on and talk because you know, like I said at the beginning, I think you've done some pretty amazing things in your career this last year or so, and it's all because of what you have done. And there's, you know, I've talked about different habits, other things that make people successful, but you are a testament to the fact that if you do these things, you will be successful. You will go where you want to go, right? Along the way. So I thought we'd kind of jump in and get started, you know, kind of talking about this because um, you know, I know for quite a while you were working for the same company, and then at some point you just kind of decided it's time for something else.
Kind of, more or less. Yeah, I was at the same company for the majority of my career where I learned a ton. I started there literally as an auditor one, just textbook theory, no practical experience. And then I really developed all the way through all my skills all the way through to an audit manager when I was there, and I was an audit manager there for a couple of years. And you can say that in terms of the C and the A and the E, I really honed my A skills at that previous company. Um, and then I was recruited from there to another company to help them to build out their internal audit function.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the first thing, you know, is like that. There's a lot of people that kind of stay with the same company, or they want to stay with the same company because it's comfortable, right? You've been there for a long time, you know it, they know you. But every so often in our life, we get opportunities that come along, right? And
Yeah.
that's what you got, right? So you know, and I actually don't know if you were actively looking or if this, you know, new company reached out to you. It happens sometimes both ways. So how was it in your career? Were you looking for something, or were you did,
Right. No, I definitely wasn't looking. I am one of those rare people that I could stay at the same company forever and be
okay.
just fine. But no, I wasn't looking. The opportunity presented itself, and I thought I would be a fool if I didn't actually do this because ultimately, what do I want to be in this field? Not an audit manager forever. And you know, in any audit shop, you're only going to have one person at the head of the department. So I can stay, but I would never be that person. So I was being given an opportunity of a lifetime, I think.
Well, and I think that that's a great way to look at it, right? That's a phrase that a lot of us hear, opportunity of a lifetime, right? But so much of the time, I mean, you had that choice at that point in time, right? That you could have said, well, no, I'm okay. I'm just going to stay here.
I
Right.
did.
Right. But instead, when that opportunity came along, you chose to take it.
Which is against my nature. Yes.
Well, and it's against a lot of people's nature, right?
Yeah.
Because we get comfortable. It's like, oh man, this is going to be something new that I'm going to have to do, that I'm going to have to learn. Right. But when those opportunities come along, and I've seen this from you for a little while now, right? That when some of these opportunities come along, even though it might not be in your nature, you're still reaching out and taking those opportunities.
Yeah.
Right. And again, you know, it's like I said, I mean, it came to you, you had an opportunity and you took it. Now when you took it, because again, right, you're going from, you know, and again, we're talking about internal audit because Rashelle happens to work in internal audit, but this is true for any of you, regardless of what kind of career you have, right? You were trained very well. You were very good at what your job was, but this opportunity was going to be something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a little scary?
Very scary. It was very scary because at my previous company, being there for so long, I know all the people. I knew all the processes. I knew what I was doing. I was comfortable. The new opportunity, well, what's to be expected of me? I have to learn new people, build new relationships, which is also not something I'm naturally comfortable with either. But build new relationships, learn an entire new business, something that I'm completely not comfortable with. So in some ways, I felt like, will I be starting from scratch? But not with the audit perspective, but just with, just learning the new business and the new people. And that was a little bit scary for me because, you have different kinds of people. I'm not the most social. I don't go out of my way to talk to people, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, but knowing you, I can't imagine you're a fun person to hang out with anyway. So, but yeah, we, a lot of people, especially in this profession or just in general, I mean, I'm guessing you would consider yourself more of an introvert than extrovert.
Definitely.
Right. So I find myself, I'm the same way. Right. And so I can be the life of the party, but that's not usually where I'm most comfortable. Right. And so a lot of times like that, knowing, you already knew the job, right? You already had
Mhm.
those skills down. So that was going to be pretty easily transferable. But like you said, there's this building relationships, there's learning the whole new company, there's it is that starting over kind of feeling that I would guess was going through your head that was a little scary.
Mhm. Yeah, and then it's starting over for sure. And as you say, like I knew the job, but I knew the job, and I would say that probably what I found out the most, and that started happening earlier this year, was that I knew how to audit, but I didn't necessarily know the other parts of the job, like the strategic aspects of the job, the executive aspects of the job. Like what does that really entail? So,
Yeah, well, and at that point, right? I mean, you can, and this is again, I think something for people to kind of learn. You knew that you didn't have that, so what did you do?
I went looking.
You went looking,
I
right?
went looking.
Now I'm gonna give you, sweet props for that right away, okay? Because a lot of times when we realize that we're maybe in over our head, we don't know something, we need to learn something. Sometimes people just shut down, right? But
Mhm.
instead, you went looking, right? What'd you go looking for? What were you trying to find?
Well, I guess something that I learned was that to really know even what to start looking for is to find out what it is that you want, what your objective is. So I knew that my objective, well, okay, so just to back up a little bit, a couple years back, I was at one of the GAN conferences, and I uh, listened to Richard Chambers
Mhm.
give this incredible presentation, and he was promoting his book for the trusted advisors. And I bought the book and I read the book, and that book really kind of cemented for me what I wanted to be as the head of an internal audit department. It gave me like oh wow, these things really are possible, and this is like a really good way to look at what the audit function can do. So when I went looking this year to see how to be better at what this job is, what I went looking for is how can I become a trusted advisor, like specifically that, like in internal audit. And honestly, it was just some Google searches. And one of the things that I came across was Jamming with Jason. The specific episode was one of your earlier ones where you spoke with Larry Harrington.
Yep.
And that conversation completely blew my mind. And then I went back to the first episode. So I started listening in February, but I'm all caught up. I was listening to you like just nonstop, like all catching up on all the episodes. And I was like, oh my gosh, my mind is completely blown. And it really shifted something in me. Like it made me feel, how do you say, it backed up what I learned from the Trusted Advisors book, but it took things to a whole other level, like the next level. And it just like the more I listened, the more I wanted to listen, the more I wanted to learn, and I just kept looking. And then some of the people that you would talk to, I would look into them, and like if they recommended books, I would, not all the books, but some of the books, I would read those books, and I would learn from them as well. So it's been a lot of learning, a lot of growth.
Well, yeah, and I think it's interesting, so if we back up just a little bit, just to kind of recap, because again, sometimes we need to hear things more than once, right? But before you even started looking, you had to know what your objective was, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, you'd read that, or came across the term trusted advisor, realized that was something that you were looking for, that you wanted to do. So then how can I become that, right? And however, through all the synchronicities that happen in the world, you ended up upon that particular episode.
It's crazy.
Right? So when you talk about, that it started shifting something in you, what was it shifting, or what was shifting? How can you describe that to people? What was happening?
I would say that it was more of, this makes sense to me. This feels natural to me. This feels good to me. This feels like something that I can do. I just need to keep learning. Where before I wasn't as confident in that feeling.
Well, that's a big one that I hear from a lot of people, right? Is because if we don't really know, then we don't feel very confident. And if we're not very confident, then what we're doing isn't usually that good as well, right? But I guess it, like you said, it made it feel like this is something you can do. And I guess that gave you hope, or how would you describe that?
Hope is good. Hope's a good word. It gave me hope. It gave me probably a little bit of fire, actually. A little bit more fire. Yeah. I was incredibly motivated.
So what was motivating for you about it?
Well, okay, so I'm in a position, or I was in a position where I was the acting head of the internal audit function. And as the acting head, the thought was always, well, for me to eventually get the time to develop in the role and then become the head of the role. But then a couple of things shifted in that the company decided to go public a couple years sooner than it initially anticipated. And so the need then for a real head then of the internal audit department became more urgent. And the fire that I had, well, with all the things that I was learning, what I wanted to do was to make sure that I was that person when that person is chosen. I didn't want it to be someone else that then I would be necessarily reporting to them and having to, yes, follow their vision, especially if their vision wasn't aligned with all the things that was firing me up all these months.
Yeah, so just for people that aren't, that are listening that aren't familiar with kind of internal audit, how it works, so just kind of explain that, right? So you were hired, you were brought in as an interim or acting head, with the idea of kind of growing into the role. You thought you had a few years to grow into it. All of a sudden, nope, things change. Now we're going to do this much quicker, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was the risk to you, if you will, that, hey, I thought I had 2 or 3 or 4 years before I'd be kind of like fully promoted. It's almost like a not really probationary time, but kind of,
Right. Kind of,
right?
yeah.
And so there was some uncertainty as to whether or not this was going to be your job, or if they were going to look at you a year from now and say, she's not quite ready yet. We better hire somebody in over the top of you, right? If I'm understanding that right.
No, exactly.
And so that's probably what gave you some of the fire is, look, I'm going to be the one who gets the job, not somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly
Pretty
what
much.
happened, isn't it?
That's exactly what happened.
It's exactly what happened. But I know you've been investing a lot in yourself, this last year or so. I guess it hadn't even been quite a year, I don't think, right? You said
About
February.
8 months.
Yeah. So you have accomplished a tremendous amount in 8 months of getting yourself kind of upskilled, right, to be able to take over that position. So what are some of the things that you did in that time? Because again, people that are listening would kind of be like, whoa, hold it. How did that happen? How did it happen so quick? Because I want people to kind of see what you've done and start to see the trends, the parallels, and how they can kind of translate that into their life as well.
Well, I guess the first thing obviously is listening to your podcast, Complete Addict, yours, and also I listen to Trent Russell's podcast as well. It's pretty great, and just listening and getting information and perspectives from many different people and learning from many different people. Then another thing that I did was, well, I have a pretty supportive group here at my company, pretty supportive leaders. And one of the things that I did, and it was kind of pushed by them, this part of it, and in that they mentioned, hey, is there a course or something that you can take? And I thought, well, there used to be. I know the IIA had a Vision University course that they did for the heads of internal audit departments. But then I looked into that for about 2 seconds, and then I was like, but I don't know if that's really what's best for me. But then I also knew from listening to all your podcasts that you have a program, the Chief Audit Executive Forum. But I also thought I wouldn't be eligible because I wasn't a chief audit executive. So then I reached out to you on LinkedIn, and I think everything happens for a reason, because the timing of that was just incredible. Because I think I reached out to you in April, beginning of April, and you were getting ready to roll out the new registration period, and it was kind of like right in there, and I got in. And I felt like that, to me, felt a little bit like destiny. Could have been any other month, but it was right then, so it felt like destiny. So I started participating in that, and I went back and I listened to all of the previous recordings in the program. So I went back to, I guess, 2019 was the first I listened to. I'm all caught up with that, and those conversations, just hearing the different perspective from all the different chief audit executives, and just learning about hiccups that they've had, and in some cases things that I've seen in my current role, and just listening to just the insight from everyone, it really catapulted, I think, my knowledge and my awareness with just how to think about things. And then you came out with the Chief Audit Executive course,
Mm-hmm.
and I got in right away. Right away, I started. I was doing the programs faster than you could put them out. And
I warned you before. Yeah.
I would get super excited each time another one would come out, and I would just do the programs. And I did them, actually did the course a couple of times. I've been through like each thing multiple times, because as you say, you don't necessarily get something the first time, and then each time you listen to something, you hear something different. And I've just been a sponge, really, just taking everything in and trying to apply little by little things that I learned, something, and trying to take that and to apply it in my day to day. And it's been pretty good.
Well, and that's why I didn't know some of that stuff that you just told me right there. So, I mean, again, I knew you were a rock star and that you were kicking butt. But it's exciting for me to see somebody else who is also as curious and loves learning like you seem to, right? Because there was this fire behind you. I mean, to go back and to listen to all of my podcast episodes, and I know some are better than others. Some of you probably like, come on, Jason, let's just get through this, right? But you went back through, you listened to all of those. You come into the new program, you go back and listen to 2 years worth of, over 2 years worth of
Videos.
Recordings and videos from beforehand, right? I mean, most of the people that have been in the program, they don't ever go back and watch them, right? You watched the whole thing. You went through the CCA course, twice. You were just devouring that, like I said, quicker than I could bring it out. I was doing everything I could to get it out fast, but I think that shows again the type of person that you are and why you've been able to accomplish what you have so quick. I mean, you effectively crammed a couple of years worth of learning into these 8 months. I don't know if you realize that or not.
I do, actually. I do. I realize it. And at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's cramming, but it doesn't feel like cramming, like the normal results of cramming for an exam. Like you cram and you take the test and then you forget everything.
Yeah.
And in this case, it feels like it's there. It's like a part of me, because it's a lot of information in a short period of time, but it's also little information a little bit at a time. Like it's just something I do daily, it's just a part of my habits.
Well, we've talked about those, right? Because I mean, it's the as you go through and kind of talk about that, and then you start applying these things day to day, that's where you start to get it. But I mean, so if we rewind a little bit, right? So let's assume again, when you got the new role, you had a couple of options that you could have chosen from. You knew you needed to learn something. You could have gone out and just read a bunch of books, or just done some internet searches, let's say, and tried to figure it out on your own, right? That's one option that could have happened. But you very quickly, and like you said, it felt like it was destiny. And again, when you reached out to me, it's like, well, of course you can come in the program, right? It's like, you're right here, you need this sort of thing. But having that and going through and watching all of those videos literally was like getting years of perspective in a very short period of time, right? Because some of the people that you were listening to on those videos, they've been in this role for 20 plus years. I mean, these are some kick-ass people in the industry who really have their shit together, and they know
Mm-hmm.
what's going on, right? But even they have some challenges and other things at different times. But you know going through a program like that, having the dedication like you had of learning and doing a little bit every day or a little bit every week, really sped up what it would take most people on their own 5 to 10 years to learn. You were able to learn, but you didn't just learn it, you started applying it as well, right? So what are some examples maybe of things that you actually, because this is one thing that a lot of people, we go through, we take a bunch of courses and we get a bunch of content, but we never really learn anything because we never really apply it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what were maybe some of the things that, or ways that you were able to kind of take this or apply it into what you're doing, so you actually learned it, you got it, it's internalized at that point?
I would say the two biggest things, maybe three, but the two biggest things are, one, the importance of relationships, right? Innately, I knew that. Like, I'm good at talking to people, even though I don't necessarily like to, but I'm naturally empathetic, and so like I build relationships, but I am not the person that necessarily goes out of my way to try to sustain that relationship. Like, um, one of the things that I took from the program was, I think Hal says, uh, you have to like develop it, maintain it, and then sustain it. So like one of the things I took from that is actively working on that, actively working on not just yeah, we're, we get along, we're great, and I'm a nice person, that I'm a nice person, but actually staying active in with the people that I'm building the relationships with over time, and not just when I need something or when they need something. It's
Yeah,
one of
which is,
the things.
that's one of the first things. Yeah, it's important, and again, a lot of people don't realize that or don't think about it, right? Well, I've got a relationship because we dated before we got married, and now and now for the next 2 years I'm going to ignore you unless I need something, right?
Mhm.
That's not a very good recipe for a marriage, and it's not really a good relation or recipe for relationships as well. So okay, so yeah, and actively working on sustaining those relationships, doing something each week or each month or whatever it is, but actually being intentional about it, right?
Mhm.
Sounds like has been one of the things that's been very helpful for you. So what's the other one or two that you were going to mention?
Another one is being what the business needs when the business needs it, and not just wearing my internal auditor hat. And as far as saying that, I can't do X, Y, and Z because that would impair my objectivity. So that's one of the things I took from the podcast, and also from the program, and really going out of the way to be value added to the business. Value can come in many different ways. It's being what the business needs when the business needs it.
Yeah, I love it. How you just said that there at the end. Value comes in different ways, I think, is a beautiful thing for us to remember in career as well as personal life as well, right? That we can show up and add value, but it's value is really about what the other person perceives as value and not necessarily what we perceive as value, right? And so it's almost like you kind of went from or kind of realized, look, it's not necessarily about me and about what I need to do, but what do the other people need and how can I show up and kind of serve that way?
Yeah,
Does that
exactly.
sound right? So it's almost
Exactly.
like a shift on you of, I've got a job to do. I've got these tasks to check off my list versus what is it that the other person really needs from me? Because my checklist probably may not be that important at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the third one is the vision or the strategy that I have for the department is making sure that whatever we're doing, it's in line with the strategies of the company. That we're not over here looking at something that no one really cares about. But we like it, so we'll look at it. It's making sure that what we're looking at is actually the things that they need from us, that we're in line with the strategies of the company.
And those have been, sounds like those have been working out pretty well for you so far.
So far, so good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's nice. Like I said, I mean, I just wanted to kind of chat to share your experience. So thank you for sharing your experience, because again, I think a lot of people are in the situation you were in before, right? Where it's like, I need some help. I don't really know where to go. I don't necessarily know what to do, right? But they can look at what you've been able to accomplish and see if that works for them.
Yeah.
Because it's like I said, I'm proud of you. I mean, you've really
Thank
kicked
you.
butt this last year, and it takes a lot of awareness, and I think it's to give you a lot of credit too, is that a lot of times it's hard for people to admit that they need help, or that they want to accept help, or that they want to get help. And so that first acknowledgement, kudos on you, back in February of, hey, I need some help. Let me go figure out what it is that I need. But then also the commitment, because, again, so many people, they'll start something, they'll work really hard for a couple of days, and then they stop. And then they stop, right? But
Yeah, that happens.
you've continued on, right, with that grit, with the commitment, the whatever it is that you want to call it, of continuing to keep going and keep doing those things that have been making you successful. And I love how you kind of pointed out those three areas, because again, you keep doing those things, you're going to be successful over your whole career, regardless of where your career takes you, because those are three things, right, that are important regardless of what job you might have.
Very true.
Heck, even in our personal lives, as well, because how much of the time don't we spend the time sustaining certain relationships, and then we wonder what happened because we weren't there. It was the equivalent of, I'm dealing with my stuff, and you just kind of, unless I need you, I'm not gonna reach out to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, you've kind of come through this part of the journey. Are there any particular pieces of wisdom that you would give to people, or what you might have told yourself a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, to give you encouragement? Or
I think what I would say to myself 2 years ago is to not be afraid. Not be afraid. The fear that I felt, or the anxiety that I felt or gave myself, was completely unnecessary. The thing that you do to overcome that is to just keep learning, educate yourself.
yep. Well, to actually do some of the stuff, right? Because again, learning is an active thing.
It is. I don't think you really learn unless you do, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's why, and again, the because I love that you brought that up, because again, so much of the time we get anxious, we get fearful of different things. Yeah, and I know, even, and again, this is not to call you out or anything like that, but it's because we all do this, right? Where when we get an opportunity or something presents itself, our first natural reaction is, nope, I'm not quite ready yet. Right. And so I remember when I reached out to you and your point was, well, I've never done that before. Give me a couple of months. Right. To which, of course, since I have to help kind of coach you, it's like, well, what makes you think you're going to be any more confident, 3 months from now? Can't you just have a conversation with somebody? And again,
Yeah.
your willingness at that point, because again, I've seen you grow and develop over this last year into where, you weren't afraid. And so that advice that you would have given yourself back then, you're taking now too, right? Because at the end of the day, there's not really anything to be afraid of, right? You're not going to die from coming on here and talking to me.
I mean, it could happen.
Oh, well, chances are you have a better
Very
chance of
soon.
winning the lottery than you do that. But like I said, I've seen you show up and you're actually taking that advice for yourself too. Which is great advice. It's not just great career advice, but it's great advice in life, I think, as well too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time and coming on here with me. Because, like I said, I'm just really proud of what you've accomplished. You've put in the hard work, and you've gotten exactly where you wanted to be, and I'm happy for you.
Thank you so much, Jason.
You're welcome. And again, I mean, lots of people listening to this are going to be able to get out of it and realize the same things that Rashelle has done for the last year, folks, is the same things you can do as well. Because I'm guessing, right, other people can do what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
everyone.
everybody can do it, but
Yeah.
it does take that commitment and investing in yourself and doing the things. But these things are possible, and like in your situation, much faster even than you realized that it was going to be as well. But here you are. All right. Well, thanks, Rashelle, and really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks.